Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it as always. Got a lot of stuff to get into today. I kind of wanted to take a look at the state of basketball in South Carolina. And people are going to be like, oh, Rob, I'm looking at it from this perspective. I understand there are, 68 teams that make the NCAA tournament. I don't think that it's out of the realm of, I don't know. What's the term I'm looking for here? As my brain's not quite functioning today. Look, I don't think it's out of the realm of sanity to think that South Carolina and Clemson should be making the tournament at least every other year. I mean, there's 68 teams. Now, I know people are going to say, but Rob, only 34 teams actually make it because you have all these automatic bids from everything else. Yeah, all right, I get that. But I don't think it's out of the realm of silliness to say, you know what? Maybe we can look at it from a perspective of, should they be making the tournament? I'll give you some stats on that in a moment. Also, we have to talk about quickly here. This is something that came across last night that was kind of interesting. Yesterday, I gave you my all-transfer portal team. I have to say, one of the guys that was on my transfer portal list, Colorado transfer Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, he's already off the market now. He is going to play for Southern Cal. So, yeah, my transfer portal team's getting picked away slowly here. But still, Jerry Rice's son, Brendan, is going to play at Southern Cal. So there's that. I've also got this write-up from the state newspaper for Ben Portnoy put this out today. Interesting stuff there they basically went around the SEC and pooled the writers for the conference. And they asked them what they thought about South Carolina and their chances for next season. And they basically pulled just like a media poll for them. Let's go with that, with what they came up with first. And then I'm going to talk about something that Paul Feinbaum, who is, by the way, a troll, he is the king of trolls, but he did say something that made some sense as far as expansion talk goes. So we'll get into that in a moment. But here's the big thing from this South Carolina write-up today from Ben Portnoy of the State. The early SEC East projected order of finish, which I thought was interesting in that we're looking at things now where we don't really know for sure where South Carolina is going to be as far as Shane Beamer is beating the recruiting trail hard. He may get more of these guys. And as I showed you yesterday, there is a ton of talent in that transfer portal. And you know what? There's going to be a section of those guys that are looking around and thinking, man, I got to find a place to play. And you may end up getting some more talent later on. But as of January 19th of 2022, this is for the folks that love the bookcase of accountability. We're going to keep this here because it's one of the earliest projections that is out there for South Carolina for next season. And I'm not saying that holding Ben Portnoy's feet to the fire here, because this is basically, we're going to give you the whole SEC East according to his write-up here from the writers that from each team in the conference. So the way it worked out is that you get 6 points for a first place vote, basically, and 5 points for second place, 4 points for third, et cetera, et cetera. And this is in the SEC East. Georgia got 60 points. They were the team that is leading the way, and everyone's not really surprised by that, as the defending national champions are bringing a lot back. Kentucky's at number 2. Now, I know the Kentucky folks are like, man, it's going to be interesting. Some of the folks that they lose, but Kentucky, according to this poll, they're going to be strong next season. They have them at 10-3, 5-3 in the conference. They have Georgia at 14-1, 8-0 in the conference. They've got Tennessee at 7-6 with 39 points, 4-4 in the conference. South Carolina at 3-5, 7-6 overall with 30 points, ahead of Florida, who they project to finish 6-7. Mizzou at 6-7, and Vanderbilt at 2-10. The only problem that I really have with this, and maybe it's just me, but I don't think there's that big of a discrepancy from finishing second to maybe fifth in the conference. You could have one game swing one way and ta-da, you're in third place, second place, whatever. I do think that South Carolina at 7 wins is not really that far-fetched. But interesting how that comes out. They picked the Gamecocks to go 7-6 next season, ahead of Florida, ahead of Mizzou, and ahead of Vanderbilt. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, looking at South Carolina's schedule for next season, they got Georgia State at home, going to Arkansas, which is a projected top 10 team for the second week of the season. Will be tough, followed by a home matchup with Georgia. They could be 0-2 in conference play and still have a season that's actually pretty decent. After that, it opens up. They've got Charlotte, SC State. They go to Kentucky. That's hard. Followed by home games with A&M and Mizzou, road trip to Vanderbilt, road trip to Florida, home with Tennessee, and then on the road at Clemson. That's a tough schedule on the at the very beginning there, because you get two teams that are probably going to be in the, I know they're in the way too early top 10 rankings for 247 Sports, as they've got Arkansas rated really, really high there. So that's interesting too. But you can make an argument that, hey, South Carolina could sweep those non-conference games. If they go to Kentucky and they drop that game, wow, you got an open week to look at Texas A&M. Let's go out to the phones. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon. Oh, well, call back. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. When you look at South Carolina's schedule, though, the conference schedule, it gets a lot easier, in my opinion, on the back end after pretty much going into Halloween weekend there with Mizzou, Vanderbilt, Florida, and Tennessee. I think those are more of an option where you could look at South Carolina and say, hey, they could probably pick those games up, as we're just mentally looking at the schedule today. All right, let's go out to the phones. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
As we're throw that pole in the garbage. Way too early.
Why should I throw it in the garbage, sir?
My Gators out already. We haven't got the spring practice yet.
It's the bookcase of accountability early poll, sir.
Well, you take that early poll and throw it in the garbage.
I'll do that after I'm done with the bookcase of accountability.
Because it's not going to happen. We're in the basketball right now.
What's not going to happen? What do you mean by that? You don't think South Carolina's going 7-6?
Florida would not have a season.
Sir, I did not say you were going to finish in last place. I said they've got you finishing ahead of Mizzou and Vanderbilt, so not last.
Yeah, that's last place for I'm concerned.
Okay. Anything else, sir?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
We'll have a better year next year.
I hope so, because last year sucked.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, man, thanks for calling the program, Hollywood. I appreciate it.
No doubt.
All right, there you go. Hollywood's not feeling them having Florida ranked where they are. I don't know. I mean, last year did suck for them, so there's that. 803-978-1832. Jay says, will Hollywood be less grumpy if we start a GoFundMe for a huge boulder? Now. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. I thought that was interesting. Just an interesting first look at the SEC East. I still think it's Georgia's to win. And I stand by what I said. You've got Georgia and then a bunch of teams that have a lot of answers or a lot of questions, in my opinion. I mean, you can't really look at the rest of that SEC lineup right there and put a stamp on them and say, hey, this is going to be an absolutely solid team. I mean, are we going to say that with Kentucky? I don't know. What's Tennessee going to do? Yeah, they shocked some folks this season, but are they going to be able to carry that over into next season? We'll see. I love looking at projections from early stuff there. So Interesting stuff there. If you want to call and respond to that, 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Some of the comments that they made about South Carolina. We'll read you a couple of these. Georgia beat writer Connor Riley says Shane Beamer has South Carolina going in the right direction. The schedule is tricky and the margins between 2 and 5 in the East are small. But if Rattler is a clear upgrade over the quarterback boondoggle the Gamecocks had in 2021, it's not hard to envision another step forward for South Carolina. Yeah. Yep. That's viable. JetMech Online says Vols will probably be second in the East. Only bright side for the rest of CFB, according to Jay, is that Stetson Bennett is coming back to Georgia. Guy won the national title and fans are upset. Out to the phones we go. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob. So one thing I'd like to ask is that why do the South Carolina fans feel the need to always think that the Mizzou program is such a piece of garbage when we've beaten them the last 3 years? It's ridiculous. I mean,
I can definitely I can see that. And here's my thing with Mizzou. Mizzou has done a good job as far as coming into the conference, and they're a competitive program pretty much every year. I think there's a section of folks that just look at Mizzou and think, well, they don't really belong in the conference. And I think it's a geography thing, to be completely honest. I think that's basically the way they look at it. Well, they're not really in the South, so why are they in the conference? But Mizzou, and I think most people know, they generally put out a pretty good football program every season. I mean, they've got 2 SEC East titles. They joined the league in 2019 or 2012. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. I mean, that's more SEC East titles than what Kentucky has, Vanderbilt has, South Carolina has. Yeah. So I mean, I'm not going to be the guy that I'm not going to sit here and say that Mizzou's an absolutely better program, but they're far from being a program that's in the dumpster for sure. I mean, recruiting class looks great there for Coach Drinkowitz. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that I hear the South Carolina fans just sit there and say, "Oh, that team's junk. They're the worst. They're going to finish below Vanderbilt and all this kind of stuff." I'm like, okay, this is it's getting bolder. It's ridiculous.
It's not even really South Carolina fans. It's I think it's fans across the conference. They just look at Mizzou and they just think, oh well, they're going to finish 4th or worse pretty much every year.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was just one thing I wanted to ask you. Thanks a lot for your time, Rob. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. Have a great day. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Aaron's talking about Tennessee's. His biggest question is our defense. We need a lot of help there. Yeah, with Tennessee, you're right. You're absolutely right. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Jay says if Mizzou puts in a Ronald McDonald Playhouse like Clemson, recruits will take them very seriously. Calm down, Jay. The Beast Bailey says Georgia and Kentucky will finish 1 and 2, and the rest will be 7 and 5, 6 and 6 or worse. That's not that far fetched. That's really not that far fetched. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. One other comment that I highlighted here. This is from Josh Moore from the Lexington Herald Journal. Of course, he covers the Wildcats. He says, the addition of Oklahoma quarterback Spencer Rattler by itself will be enough to keep South Carolina in the conversation as a dark horse contender in the East, whether it's legitimately warranted or not. The Gamecock offense ranked among the worst in the country, but their defense in year 1 of the Shane Beamer era proved stingy enough to get them to a bowl win. Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true on the front with the defense, but I don't know about the offense. We got to see how that works out. Nick says people hate on Mizzou because they're from the state of Missouri. Thank you, Nick. That's actually really funny. What's wrong with Missouri? Show me state's all right. What's wrong with the show me state? There's good stuff in Missouri. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. As an early look there at the SEC East. Thanks to Ben Portnoy from the state for that. Good stuff that he put together there. I don't know if I'm buying. I don't know if I like Mizzou finishing there. They probably could finish higher. The big question mark team in the East, though, is Florida. And why Florida? Because I don't know what Billy Napier is going to be able to do there in his first season. He could theoretically put something together where they look like a really, really competitive team. But online, at DK Funderburk put this out this morning on Twitter. Since 2008, now this is the Florida Gators team that we talk about as, okay, they're one of those teams in the SEC East that's everybody should look on as like, man, this is a tough out. Since 2008, 13 seasons, they've had 3 losing seasons, 4 head coaches since Urban Meyer, 6 seasons with at least 5 losses, and 6 unranked finishes since 2008. That, my friends, is a mediocre program. I mean, those are all facts there. I didn't spew those out just picking stuff up off the wall there. But since 2008, 3 losing seasons. It's not exactly, and then of course 6 seasons with at least 5 losses. So yeah, I don't get the whole thing of looking at Florida as they're one of the powers of the East. Yeah, they have an SEC East title. I get that, but they're not exactly, at least in this the past 15 years, just a monumental Goliath of a program. Yeah, they're a respected program, but they're not the absolute best program in the East by far. They're really not. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. JetMex says replacing Dan Mullen with a bag of cement would be an improvement. Fair enough. The Beast Baylor with another comment. Tennessee might finish 3rd in the East, and I think South Carolina and Missouri will fight for 4th and 5th spot, and Vandy, unfortunately, will finish last. Yeah, I don't know the whole thing with Vanderbilt, man. It's hard to. You go to a game there, and it's like, oh, okay, there's a game, awesome. I don't know how you change that. I really don't. All right, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. When we come back, Paul Feinbaum said something about an exit strategy for leaving conferences to head to the SEC. We'll talk about that in just a moment. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. I almost read your comment on the air there, Caviar Hound. Oh, my goodness. I'm glad I caught myself. Generally, I'll look over there and I'll read some of this stuff, and it's like, oh, can't say that. Oh, can't say that. Yeah, that one would probably get me in trouble on the broadcast side of it. Very good, funny comment, though. We'll highlight that for a minute. Oh, that's off the top rope there. If we're talking on the football front, I mean, I kind of agree, but they're a hell of a baseball team. I understand you're avoiding Feinbaum, but I'm just using one comment that he said. We're not going to talk completely about Feinbaum. I'm not going to bore you with Feinbaum there, Blake. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I agree with you on that there, Bailey. It's hard to get into Vanderbilt. It really is. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. Feel free to call the show 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown. You know, we've talked a little bit about the idea of, hey, we're going to have an expansion at some point. And I don't know. I don't know about the whole expansion to the playoff, because I think we've talked about this. I definitely don't want to do the whole, the big time expansion where you have tons and tons of teams in the playoffs, because I think you're going to end up with a lot of blowouts. But I like the idea of 4 and having the best of 4 of there. Now, I have been on the record saying that I think that you should win your conference, and I think that's something that should be in the mix there to actually have a chance to play for the national title. I mean, I believe that, and that doesn't go with Georgia, who ended up beating Alabama. I get that, and that's a tweak. That's just for me, because logically you could make an argument, hey, if you can't win your conference, how can you be the national champion? But I'm willing to give that up. As long as we have football people making the decisions and there's no bias there, then I'm fine with that. I mean, I've kind of gone to be like, all right, Rob, you can only yell at the sky for so many things. You got to give some of them up. But here is something that is interesting that Paul Feinbaum said on WJOX this morning down in Alabama. He says, when Texas and Oklahoma joined the SEC back in the summer, he thought it was for realignment. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think the SEC is in such a strong position, and I think the world of college football is so upside down based on the attitude like Jim Phillips, Kevin Warren of the Big Ten, that I think the others are going to look for an exit strategy instead of wasting time instead of the college football playoff. You have some major universities going, you know what? The good thing is doing us staying in our league that refuses and will not accept change. Let's call the SEC and see what the dollar amount is and get out of where we are. So his idea is that you will go around and pick out the best teams and move them into, if we're talking about just football, moving them into the SEC. Maybe not calling it the SEC, just calling it, I don't know, Super Conference 1. That's kind of one way to look at it. I don't know. Mr. Human says, let's have an expansion and put all the SEC teams in there. That's what the ECPN would love. Yeah. Look, the SEC apologists out there, they'll tell you, we've got all these SEC teams that are great. And you do. I mean, you have the at least 2 of the top 10 teams every year that can say, hey, we've got a realistic shot of winning the national title. On the other hand, there's only about 7 or 8 teams total that can win the whole thing anyway. So, yeah. When you step back and look at it, he made one more comment. He goes, if you're sitting there in a Notre Dame position, why do you join the ACC with that approach? And if you're Clemson or some of these other schools, Florida State in particular, you have to be asking yourself, why don't we join a super league and really say, who cares what the rest of college football does? We're joining the only conference that matters. Now, of course, Paul Feinbaum is an SEC apologist till the end of time. The SEC could have teams go 0-16 across the board, whatever. Pick a number. And, they're still the best conference ever. But I do think that other conferences don't value football as much as the SEC does. And I do think that certain universities look at football and they don't have you could go with the funding, the coaching, all of that, where the bottom half of these leagues, not so much. You don't have a lot of, let's go with Kentucky. Kentucky is not perennially a football school, or they're generally not a team that you think about, okay, they could be one of the top 20 teams in the country. They're generally on the outside looking in, but look what they've done. They put a lot of money into the program. They've redone a lot of stuff at Kroger Field, and they extended Coach Stoops, and they're putting down a foundation there to make themselves a viable program. That's going to take time, but they're doing it. And other conferences, you can make an argument that teams that were at where Kentucky is, they're not really doing that. I'll give you a prime example. Boston College in the ACC, in my opinion, is sort of on the same level of where Kentucky is, give or take just a little bit. Okay. AJ Black covers Boston College for Sports Illustrated. And he'll tell you, if you go to a football game at Boston College, there's just a lot of people there that just don't care. They just don't. You have your hardcore set that are going to be there, and that's it. But as far as taking the time and actually caring about the program, they don't. They don't. I think there's a good set of teams around the country that are kind of like that. They like the idea of competing in football because they like the money that comes with it. But in the end, they come back to, yeah, do I really want to put all that money into it? I think that's a big problem. But as far as teams like Florida State, who even though they've been terrible here lately, they still think that they're a football school. Where right now they're kind of not. Clemson, they put the money into their program. I wonder if there are people that are thinking like that. You know, our conference doesn't seem to be taking this very seriously. What if we could jump? 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Feel free to join us there on the program. Billy is still upset. He says Tennessee hung 35 points on Pitt, the ACC champion, and lost by 7 points. I mean, are you still upset you lost that game? Come on, man. Kenny Pickett would still be scoring touchdowns if that game was on right now. I mean, literally, it was like, what, a point a minute, basically? Throwing the ball all over the field. So, I don't know. You got to let some of that stuff go, man. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Do you think that we should get to a point where, or do you think that certain teams are going to get to a point where, like, you know what? Doesn't seem like you guys care about football in this conference. Maybe we're going to go to a different one. We'll see. Blake with a good comment here. CBS wants every Alabama game. Of course they do. And you can tell by the way that certain commentary goes that everything kind of shades towards insert dominant team here, whether it's Alabama or whoever. It's kind of the way it goes. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown. Do you think that a Clemson, a Florida State, etc., you think there's people that are thinking, you know what, maybe we'll join that super conference? And is this super conference going to be an elitist conference? Are they going to look at teams like a Vanderbilt that we were talking about earlier and saying, you know what, we're going to kick you out of the league here and put in Clemson? Who knows, man? At this point last year, in January, when I was doing this show, if you would have told me Oklahoma and Texas are going to the SEC, I would have laughed at you. So the idea of, hey, we're going to have a super conference, I've learned maybe that's not that far-fetched. Maybe it's not. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Billy is right. We're getting ready to start college baseball season. Vanderbilt is a baseball school. They most certainly are. They most certainly are. So, yeah. After that, it's kind of silly. Jimmy says a conference is composed of schools, not football teams. Very, very good point, sir. But money is the most important thing. And right now, football draws all the money. It really does. More of the Rundown when we come back. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. I was saddened to see that about Franklin. Very sad. Hey, I could share something with you guys. A lot of you guys are over there every day or in the chat room, and I appreciate it. I had something I wanted to bring to the show, but I thought it would just make everybody silly. You know, the stuff with Nick Saban and his letter to Ron Manchin, or whatever Manchin from West Virginia. Man, Nick Saban is catching absolute hell over that. I don't want to get into the politics of it because it's, I believe in the idea that we live in our country and you should be able to vote however the hell you want to vote. And if Nick Saban wants to vote a certain way or vote with certain tendencies that lead him down a set road, then that's on him. But my goodness, man, the beating that he took in my social media feed, where people were literally just like, all the good stuff that Nick Saban has done, you would have thought that he was just an absolute scumbag for sending that letter to Manchin. Man, I agree with Billy there. I respect Nick Saban for. I can tell you, I've read about some of the stuff he does for community service and all of that, and all that's great. But wasn't it great back when nobody knew how you voted and no one cared? That was just great times, wasn't it? I don't have to worry about a national championship winning coach, some considered the absolute best of all time. Yeah, let's just throw him into the weeds because he votes differently than I do. What a mess that turns into. I don't care how you vote. I really don't. If you put it out there, though, it's just Well, and that's the big thing too there, B Bean. Nick Saban can literally, oh, you don't like the way I'm doing things here? Then fine. I'm still going to be a national championship winning coach and considered one of the greatest of all time. And you can just be somebody that's going against my political views on a Facebook post or on a Twitter post. I mean, he's up on top of that rock and he can do whatever he wants, but Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app, 803-978-1832. I was talking with the chat room about this earlier about as we were in the break there, and I'll bring it up for just a quick second here. I don't like doing the whole politic thing on the show, but Nick Saban is a guy that he is basically, I don't want to get into the absolute politics of it, but the head coach and other prominent sports figures with tie to West Virginia have urged Senator Joe Manchin to support sweeping legislation to protect the right to vote is the headline that's out there. The crazy thing with this whole story is that generally when you say Nick Saban, you automatically think excellence. You automatically think awesome. You think, man, this guy is a molder of young men. Look at the Alabama trophy case. Let's think back to Alabama before Nick Saban got there. Now, I know everybody's going to talk about, they had all this stuff with Bear Bryant. Alabama was a gong show. I mean, people seem to forget that. Back in the Derek Lassick days, they weren't very good. They really weren't. Nick Saban comes in, they're winning national titles. It's not really even an argument. They're probably one of the top 3 football programs in the country, playing for the national championship pretty much every year. They are the beast. But something comes out with how Nick Saban theoretically thinks, and it goes against the way that some people like to vote, and all of a sudden Nick Saban's name is getting dragged through the mud. My thing with all of this is that society changes, but the way that I look at it is that sports has always been something that can unite us all. And I don't really care about how you vote. Seriously. I don't care. And I don't think anybody else cares. And you know what? If you're getting hired to coach a football program, I don't think you care. I'm willing to bet, though, that there's a lion's share of the folks that'll be yelling Roll Tide in the stands that love to bash, I don't know, insert SEC team here that Alabama beats frequently. Hello, Tennessee. And they're all happy about that. But they're going to tell you point blank, man, to heck with Nick Saban and trying to convince Manchin from West Virginia to do anything. And that's to the point where it's sad. B. Beam with a good point there. Maybe Saban is looking for an exit strategy. I don't know. I don't know how he thinks. All I do know is that he wants to win. That's pretty much everything that we've had out there about him. But I bring this topic up because it's people dragging Nick Saban through the mud. What a mess. 803-978-1832. Let's go to the phones. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Rob, I'm with you, brother. I do think that just because somebody has a certain celebrity status, be it in Hollywood, college football, pro football, whatever sport, wherever they're, it does not make them an expert on how that the average person should conduct their lives and how that the country should be run. I mean, that's just what it's like. Nick Saban's a great football coach. Doesn't mean he's a great world leader and politician.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. The thing that bugs me though is that people will look at him differently now because they found out that he's trying to get Manchin to go along with the thing with the voting rights that Paul Tagliabue and lots of other folks are pushing him to. So it's just there's the old term stay in your lane. I mean, do what you're good at. Just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at another thing. Hey man, I appreciate you calling, man. Thank you so much.
No problem. Talk to you later, man.
All right, there you go. Yeah, and I agree with that, but I just wish we could get back to a point where if we're going to evaluate someone, you know, your politicians, we should hold them accountable for what they do because we live in an elected republic and we send them up there to basically there are our speakers and we should hold them accountable. But a football coach, he's taking his the weight of his name in theory, Nick Saban is, and basically he has ties to West Virginia and he's telling them, hey, this is what I want you to do. Now, I don't know if that information should be put out there, but you know what? Someone messaged me on Twitter about this and said, you know what? I bet he put this out there because of recruiting. And he wants the recruits who are much younger, who may be more open to stuff that's in this bill to pass, to have them thinking, you know what, at least Coach Saban is on my side with it. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. B. Bean with probably the quote of the day. I do not care how anyone votes. I just want everyone to vote. Exactly. If you don't vote, then to hell with you. I believe in that too. You have the opportunity to vote. You should go and vote, period. Anyway, I don't want to do stuff on politics, but I had to bring that up because it's one of the few times where Nick Saban has been looked at in a negative light. Oh, I don't like Nick Saban because he does this. Now, there's going to be the people that say I don't like Nick Saban because he beats us senseless, and that's fine. That kind of hate you expect, but there's respect in that too. There's definitely respect in that too. But now there's going to be a section of folks that are, oh, well, I don't like Nick Saban because of the letter he sent to Manchin. Let's just keep it in the lane of why don't we respect Nick Saban for what he does on the football field? His political views are really none of your business or anyone else's for that matter. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the rundown this afternoon here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. We can all get together and dislike each other's teams. That's fine. That's America right there, buddy. I don't like you because you're an Eagles fan. We can have a beer, though. I don't like you because you're a 49ers fan. Whatever. That's more American than I don't like you because of the way you voted because it doesn't fit with how I feel politically. That is oh man, that bugs me to the end of time. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown as we roll along here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Appreciate you checking out the show there and the podcast. Lots and lots of folks downloading the podcast and listening later on. We appreciate that. JetMex says you can't drink beer with Eagles fans. Yes, you can. I've done it. Yes, you can. I don't know if I drink with Buffalo Bills fans. They're jumping off onto flaming tables, and I don't want to do all that. I mean, I guess I'd have a beer with them, but I wonder what fan base parties the hardest in the NFL. I mean, you'd have to think that it would be the Bills. They have to party hard. They're practically part of Canada. It's cold up there. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. This is the Rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. I appreciate you guys indulging me for a minute there. I don't like to talk politics, man. Not on my sports talk show, but some of the stuff that I've seen people saying about Nick Saban, holy crap. Really? The old story about Eagles fans throwing snowballs at Santa Claus. That's true. I read about that. Wonder what fan base folks would like to party with. I appreciate that, Beam. I just people try to paint you into a corner when you say stuff like that, and it's like, I don't care how you vote. Do what you got to do. Here, Hall of Famer Jerry West was obviously in the mix. Paul Tagliabue. All kinds of people signed this stuff. I don't know. Hey, Tony, the best part about that is that if it does violate the Constitution, they'll fix it. They will fix it. So I'm pretty happy about that. That's one of the things I love about our country, man. We can get silly sometimes, but in the end, we eventually come back. We really do. I do wonder if he put that out there, and I'm not trying to stoke a flame on this, but you remember the story with the mullet was wearing an OAN shirt, the coach from Oklahoma State. Yeah, and he came out and basically had to come back and walk that back. What a mess that is. Guy's wearing a T-shirt. Stupid. Well, welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. We've talked about several things today, including South Carolina picked to finish what? Hold on, from my notes. They're picked to finish 4th, according to a poll put out there, or projected ranking from Ben Portnoy at the State, where several writers were in the mix. In the SEC East, we'll give you the rundown really quick on that. Georgia at 1, Kentucky at 2, Tennessee at 3, South Carolina at 4, Florida at 5, Missouri at 6, Vanderbilt at 7. Yeah. There's that. I say that a lot, too, on the show. I got to stop saying that. There's that. It's like, It's almost like I say there's that, and I'm hearing this in my head. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. A couple of other notes from earlier today. The transfer portal players that I gave you yesterday that I thought would be competitive. One of them has already found a new school. Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, is committing to Southern Cal. He will play there. Also, we talked about Paul Feinbaum saying, I wonder if teams or schools that value football at and being really competitive at a high level, because it comes down to money too, if they're going to make the jump and try to join a super conference, whether it's the SEC or wherever else. So, yeah, if you want to talk about that, we can. Some of the comments. Let's see here. Stetson Bennett the fourth online says dogs will be faster this fall. Tony says he bought his national championship gear. You almost have to like mortgage your house. Some of this stuff, man, you buy national, like I was trying to buy some Braves gear, right? It's like $50 for a hoodie. My goodness, $50-$60 plus shipping. You know, if you buy one for you and then you got a couple of other ones, it's like, hey, you buy for the kids, you drop $300 or $400 on hoodies. Jay wants to know, how is Clemson a preseason top 5 team? I don't look, if you're asking me how, I can tell you right now, unless they hit the transfer portal and they get some more guys, Clemson's not going to be, in my opinion, a preseason top 5 team. I just don't see it. When I go to ACC kickoff in July, it's going to be a little, I may be different in who I put at the top of my ballot for the Atlantic. Let's go back out to the phones. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, is every team in the country going to join the SEC?
I don't think every team in the country is going to join the SEC, but I could sit here and think, all right, there may be some validity to certain teams in certain conferences saying, you know what, maybe the grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah, but I mean, eventually it gets down to there's too many teams in the conference.
Yeah, but if you end up with,
you see the NFL, they don't have, you know, two super conferences. They have divisions.
Right. Maybe you have one conference with several divisions and you only play each other. I don't know how that's going to work out, but you know,
I mean, I just don't see the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and the ACC folding up to jump to the SEC.
Yeah. Well, it may end up not being the SEC. It may just be a super conference one. Who knows?
And Brad Bromell, how much longer do we have to endure this?
Well, I'm going to talk about that in a moment. It's going to be my final thing as we head out here, but I'll give you some stats on that.
I watched that trash last night.
Wasn't very good.
Man, it was garbage.
Wasn't very good at all.
Thank you, man.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Anyway, back to what I was saying. You know, it would not be that far-fetched for me to sit down with my ballot, my preseason ballot that I fill out at ACC kickoff, and I can make a relatively good argument that Wake Forest should be number 1. I can make a relatively good argument that NC State could be number 1 in the Atlantic. Why? Because Clemson has issues on the offensive line, and Clemson has issues with who's going to catch footballs for them next year, and Clemson's got issues at who's taking snaps for them at quarterback. Yeah, all of that. I can make a valid argument just based on that. Yeah, the Clemson defense is going to be outstanding. It's going to be a top 10 defense in the country. You got to score points to win. Got to score points to win. And I don't know if they're just going to try to ride Will Shipley until he falls off the face of the planet. Or is Uiagalelei finally going to get right and be the guy that was throwing for, 300 plus yards against Notre Dame? I don't know. But since I don't know, it's easier for me to look at a Wake Forest or an NC State and think that they might be the team that could win the Atlantic. That's going to be a very interesting set. When I go, generally when you go to ACC kickoff, behind the scenes type thing here, everybody that fills out a ballot or whatever, it's pretty much, okay, Clemson's going to do this. And the fun thing is trying to figure out who's going to win the Coastal. They call it Coastal Chaos. Who's going to win the Coastal? Last year was fun because it was like, all right, North Carolina looks like they've got it together. And then what happened? North Carolina finishes 7-6. Not very good. So And none of these polls really mean anything, but I'm wondering how people are going to get together up there and be like, hey, man, who you got winning the Atlantic? Because I can make a realistic argument that it's not Clemson this coming season. I really could. And all you could tell me is that, oh, well, we'll have to see. Well, yeah, that's true. All right, let me give you this stuff before we get out of here. Both South Carolina and Clemson's basketball teams have lost 3 games in a row. Here's the most interesting thing to me. When was the last time both schools were in the NCAA tournament? Does anybody know? Yeah, it was 97 and 98. Both teams lost in the first round. South Carolina lost to Richmond. Clemson lost to, I can't remember who it was. But they both lost in the first round when you had both teams in the tournament. I don't know if there's any hope for basketball. Billy goes, when was Notre Dame's last bowl game win? I don't know. I'd have to Google that, sir. Google is our friend. We'll have to find that. Stetson Bennett up there says he makes his own Braves gear. Well, may need to hit me up at Rob Sounds Good on Twitter. I might buy some stuff from you. We're not buying $60 for a hoodie. My goodness. Anyway, both teams are on a 3-game losing streak. South Carolina sits at 10-7, 1-4 in conference play. They've lost games to Princeton. I know Princeton is leading the Ivy League right now, but they also lost to Coastal Carolina. And Clemson is a bad loss too, because the Tigers aren't very good. They're 10-8 overall, 2-5 in conference play. Lost to St. Bonaventure, lost to Rutgers. Their best win is probably NC State or UVA on the road. I'm not saying it's time to change coaches, but I'm just saying I don't know how we can get these teams to be at a point where they're competitive enough to make the NCAA tournament. So we're coming up on the part of the year where we'll talk a lot about basketball because, hey, that's the big college sport right now. But in reality, thinking that we're going to have a team from the Palmetto State that's actually pretty good, yeah, it's just not there. And I know people will tell me, well, this happened, and the Gamecocks made a Final Four run. And do you know how many Gamecock fans are telling me, man, I'm tired of Frank Martin? So I hear that a lot. I don't know what else they want. They went to the Final Four with the guy. But basketball is a mess. I just thought I would throw that out there. 803-978-1832. I'm about out of time today, but we'll be back at it tomorrow. Don't forget, you folks that are into the NFL and into college football too, Levon Kirkland joins us on Friday. Looking forward to that. He'll answer whatever question you got for him. He's always got good stuff to on the football front. It's great to pick the brain of someone who was a great, great player. Billy says Stephen Curry wasn't good enough to play in the ACC. He played at Davidson. Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, you can't really argue that. Maybe there's a recruiting thing where it's really weird that all these recruits go to North Carolina and Duke, though. I don't know. Not throwing any shade out there, but they get a lot of the recruits. I mean, a lot of them. Kentucky gets a lot of them, too. All right, Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next. He is the czar of Clemson Sports. Be sure to follow him on Twitter. He is at Clemson Sports. And don't forget to check out his show today. He's on every day from 4 to 6. Of course.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Podcast up at 5 o'clock. We'll talk later on. Thanks for listening to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yes, we will be doing a show tonight. There is a show with Jackpot and myself tonight. I don't know where Jackpot is, but we're definitely going to do a show. His video on the channel with him dancing the other night was hilarious, by the way. Hilarious. All right, you guys rock, man. Thank you so much. We'll see you later on.